thank you everyone for joining us today. What can I say about Rich? The lived experience you're going to get today is just going to be fantastic. So, Rich, I'm going to hand it over to you. Let you do your own intro because as you packed so much into your young 50 years so far, and I think we're going to find out a lot more about ADHD. Not only for the fact that both you and I were frantically, furiously sort of getting onto the system about 4 minutes before we were meant to go live, instead of the 15 minutes that we normally do. So, but we're all here now. That's the problem with having an ADHD host and an ADHD guest. But we'll tell us, Rich, how can we do more admin?
Thank you very much, Simon. So it's true. A minute ago, there we were trying to make sure that we could actually get on between us. It's quite funny. But yeah, I'm going to talk about lots of different things to do with. I suppose it's more to do with executive function than it ever is to do with the admin. Certainly something for the past 2 years that I've been spending a lot of time working on for different things that are happening with me, but I'll go into that a bit later. I think, we are all unique. People try and get labels, whether it be ADHD, whether it be autism, whether it be Tourette's, whether it be whatever it might be. But everybody is diverse. Everybody is different. Everybody has a different experience, a different background, and we all see the world in a different way. And I think it's really important in very much our work, our education, our as parents for children in education, in play, which is often missed as far as sporting and outside of those, as to how we see the world and how we engage with the world. Today, just to make sure everybody is, there, please do ask some questions. I'm just now looking around to see if I can see where the chat is, but ask questions now or find me on LinkedIn or, whichever way. Do ask questions as we go or through, and Simon and I will endeavour to answer them. Just to make sure that there are, I suppose, some quite deep thought processes that I've been through as far as some of this stuff. So just to make sure that anything that you feel at the end, if you want to talk to somebody about, or just from a lived experience point of view, do again reach out, etc. Right. So there's me and Henry. You'll get to know my family as we go through this. I was diagnosed with ADHD at 48, which I don't think came as too much surprise. We had worked through, certainly with one of my children, a range of neurodiverse traits through Tourette's, autism, ADHD, PTSD, PSD, sensory processing, etc. So a lot of that. But as we were going through that process, as many parents do, the people looking at you start to say, well, have you been tested? I think you should. So I went off, got done, and there I was, probably at the highest percentage that you can get, which came as no surprise after 48 years of looking at my life. But what it did do is start to explain what was going on, start to explain some of the whys, some of the questions I had, etc. I am very open about it. Talk to a lot of people. I've done lots of webinars and everything else before, and try and put different perspectives, and certainly put a different perspectives of, as I said at the start, very much a lived experience around what being a neurodivergent means to me, and to try and dispel, some of what's out there in the media, some of what is spoken about, but also try and be an advocate for all, because there are varying degrees of neurodivergent traits that some people find completely and totally empowering. Many people find empowering, others don't know, and certainly that is something that I'm working on with my new business admin, and we're certainly looking at how we start to bridge some of these gaps of executive dysfunction, and I'll talk about that in a minute, for what are now around 3.4 million adults in the UK with ADHD, but certainly executive function extends to, really anyone who has that impaired cognitive function that may impede their ability to plan, to organize, to complete and finish tasks. And in many cases, many people just don't know why. What is it that I'm talking about? I think that's the first thing. So cognitive impairment is the core issue. It does affect that task management. It affects focus and it affects decision making. In some, it's about just refocusing. It's about making sure that you can find ways to get on task and use the hyper focus that comes with a lot of neurodivergent conditions and actually utilize that to get things done. Sadly for me especially, I'll sit there and I'm doing one thing and then something shiny next to me comes up and I'm going to do that then, and then I'll do the next thing, and I get to the end of the day and I've not really done anything. But these are the consequences, I suppose. To some, it can lead to very negative behaviors, to a impeded social mobility. And certainly there's a lot of reports about how in more deprived areas globally, the growth in neurodivergent traits are only now just being realized, but they've always been there. This isn't something new. It isn't something that we've just made up. It isn't something that, suddenly appeared. It's always been there. It was there with me at 5 in the classroom when I sat at the back. It's there for many people. It's just now that we're starting to be more vocal about it. It can, because of these cognitive impairment, it isn't such the neurodiverse condition, but it's the coexisting conditions that can go with that: acute mental health issues. It can lead to imbalances within your family. It can lead to financial insecurity. It can lead to, again, that downward spiral, that generational downward spiral, because you're just not able to keep up with that typical world, and you keep coming across the societal barriers that are put in the way. I talked to a lot of people about neurodivergence being the left-handed compared to the right-handed, and the world is just set up for right-handed, and we're there trying to fathom our way through what is a world created for a different brain type. That can again lead to, as I said, health issues, society isolation, and actually starts to build those disparities, even with people trying to help. It can lead that, you keep never quite getting to the next stage, and everything moves so quickly. So executive function, impulse control, emotional control, flexible thinking, working memory, self-monitoring, planning and prioritizing, task initiation, organization, and to different varying degrees, are we affected by some of this if executive function does play a difficult part in your life? Just thinking on the spot, just making those instant decisions, good calculations when we go to an airport as a neurodivergent family, it becomes hilarious after we've run around 3 times and lost everything and tried to find this and tried to do that. But actually the output of that is not great for everybody else's mental health around us, and actually for actually going forward and getting on with a highly fun thing to do, but actually by the time you get there you're already exhausted, paying bills, paying a fine. I'll put a link on, I haven't left it in this presentation, but I'll put a link onto a film I created. It's 3.5 minutes. It's a little stick man, but it portrays a time in Sam's life, we'll call him, of just a point where all of this finished in quite a crescendo of how to get through and how to combat the problems with executive dysfunction. So I spend a lot of time talking to people about it's not all sunshine and superpowers. Again, as I said, so many people will take the creativity of certainly ADHD and the 1,000 thoughts a minute and the continual processing of ideas and thinking out the box and being able to come up with that problem solving ability as an absolute superpower. And I love that thought. I love that I can do that, and I love that I do that. But it's not just that. And we have to think about what comes from neurodivergent conditions, and certainly what that impaired executive function again can do. And certainly around emotional deregulation, it can really harm that equilibrium of your day. Something goes wrong at 7 in the morning. Actually, for me and for many others, it continues throughout the day. You can't just stop and move on. It's deregulated you for that day. So it's actually trying to put the right routines in the way and actually find ways not to get that rise. And I'm going to talk a bit later about work and about getting into work and that first few hours of the day and how it can be more constructive going forward. Working memory gaps. And I'll sit there smart. Well, I should have said that. You shouldn't have said this. I should have said. But actually, you can laugh about it to the point when it really is difficult, where you are losing gaps of information, where you should have picked the kids up, or where you should have paid that bill, or where you should have done that. And actually, that there then starts to exasperate the anxiety that you feel over actually getting tasks completed and things, because by the time you've remembered it all, you've got 15 tasks to do and not just one. Impulse control, there's something we talk about within the ADHD community, and that's the tax, ADHD tax. There was a report by Monzo and YouGov in 22 which said that the ADHD tax is around £1,600 per person per year, that actually we just either spend on stuff we don't need or stuff that's still packaged, or that Amazon delivery. Amazon's the worst for me. The Amazon delivery that you actually didn't want, didn't need, shouldn't have bought. Whether it be a fine because you forgot where your car was or your car keys were, or you couldn't do this or you couldn't do that. Actually, if you start extrapolating that out and you start looking at the prevalence of ADHD within the UK, you're starting to get into about £5.5 billion a year, which is that ADHD tax. And where companies will take you for it, parking companies, down to you, they'll fine you for not paying something, then they'll put it up, then it's another £12, another £12, another £12, until they're trying to get you in court. And that's just the local council. Forget everybody else that tries to do the same. Time blindness. It's everything's at the last minute. Everything's just about there. You just about get there, but by the time you've got there, your breathing's up, your heart rate's going, you're trying to settle down into a meeting, and by that point you've just missed the start of what's going on, or you've missed the start of the play, or you've missed this, and then it's all the spiral of, well, you couldn't get in, I couldn't see that happening, I couldn't see this. Again, it's something that you have to really work on and actually really think about where time is and what's going on. At task initiation, just actually getting and starting a task, not putting it off, not leaving that bill on the table for as long as it takes, then actually worrying about what it is, how it is, why it is, what are you going to do with it if you open it, if you've got the money to pay for it, if you don't, if you just leave it. All of these things that continually affect people that are again hindered by executive dysfunction, and then difficulty following instructions. And certainly I'm going to talk about that in just a while. Organized thinking, just sequencing, thinking about taking one big thing, and actually working out how. What am I going to do that? How am I going to break all of that down? How am I going to put it into smaller chunks so that I can actually address that? How am I going to be able to do that over the next this amount of time when I know that there's 1,000 other things coming in? We have a wonderful thing about saying yes to everything. Of course, I'll do that. I'll find time. I'll find time to do that. I'll find time to do that. But then by the time it is, everybody's then shouting, saying, well, you said you were going to do this. You've just become overwhelmed and you just cannot get to the other side. And again, with social struggles, a lot of neurodivergent individuals struggle in that, and a lot, certainly it's getting better now. But those social interactions through work and through players, let's go to the pub, let's go here, let's go to really busy places where there's really loads of people. And actually, that person who's quiet on the side is just trying to maintain their composure within that environment. But then, as some of us know, actually, it's then about trying to quieten them down, trying to fit in. So you'll have one drink, you'll have another drink, you'll have a third drink, and then you're the loudest in the room, looking at yourself, thinking, "What the hell am I doing?" But actually, it was just about trying to be part of that social side, where actually it would have been so much better just to go out, go for a walk, go into the hills, and actually try and have a meeting there. And it's certainly something that I encourage. Just some numbers, really, as far as a lot of the research that I've been doing. And this doesn't pertain directly, all of it, to ADHD or to neurodivergency, but we are 8 times more likely to be in debt. We're 8 times more likely to make risky financial choices. If at the moment it's 400 billion is the UK debt. That's what's sitting in debt on credit cards and store cards and everything else. We know right now, and certainly for a lot of us in this ADHD community, and those that are medicated, that right now the global medication has run out, and they're not sure when that's coming back in. That's further overwhelming the NHS. It costs £10,000 per year to diagnose and then monitor and manage a person with ADHD. And if you look at that, sub 5 million people, including children in the UK, that are either diagnosed or symptomatic ADHD, you can start to see what the impact on the NHS is. And then you start to look at, well, if it is managing that, if it's not managed, think about the mental health distress, etc., that people are going into the doctors about, the GPs about, they're trying to get help about. 37% of people in prison are ADHD, and to their own report, HM Inspector of Prisons in 22 and 23 have said that if they actually tackled ADHD in a correct and pragmatic way, they could lower crime in this country by up to 20%, because it is so prolific, because it comes from the fact that so many children were told to sit down, be quiet, sit still, don't fidget in school. And that's what they did. They spent their time not fidgeting and sitting still. They weren't looking at the board and learning. So that then continues through to they walk out of school with very little as far as prospects. And the next part they find is going into some of the more negative sides of neurodivergence, down to food insecurity, like we know this across the UK right now. But again, people with neurodivergent conditions are much more likely to be those that are in food banks, are using food banks, are trying to just get by, because again, they haven't tackled the big process of making sure they're getting the right benefits, getting the right money coming in, understanding their money, having that stability of money, being able to pay the right bills, not being in debt, not being impulsive. All of that contributes to those negative cycles where a child may go to school hungry because there's just nothing left. Yet society will demean those people and not try and help. So from there we go positive. Henry and I went to see Ralph Fiennes the other night, which was pretty amazing, and to watch this man and listen to him, and to then talk to him afterwards, and just understand someone whose mind thinks differently, and that's as far as I will go. But someone who throughout his entire life was never given the ability to go and be the first to circumnavigate both poles, wasn't given anything to go and climb a mountain, wasn't given anything to go and do all these things. Actually, he begged, borrow and stole whatever he could to do that. He never paid anybody, nobody ever paid him. By the end of it, he has made over 19 million for charity, but never taken a penny from any of those expeditions he did, but he is now the greatest living explorer. But why I talk about him is because everything he talks about is by taking something like a mountain and breaking it right down into 1 foot after the next foot, after the next foot, after the next foot. And I think that's really what we need to do. It's about taking great big problems and breaking them down into small, doable chunks. So from an overwhelm point of view, exactly that. This week, by the time I got onto this webinar assignment, I've got 3 meetings that I've already done. I've got 4 this afternoon. I'm filling out my diary. I'm doing lots of different things, probably too much. But actually, for me now, I've turned around some people and said, I've got to just move some stuff into the next week. But for many, what they ask me about overwhelm, and it's about just find 3 small tasks a day. That might be just drink a glass of water as you get up. It might be just make your bed as you get up, achieve, and then achieve the next thing, and then achieve the next thing. The problem with the tools and everything out there that's trying to calm the overwhelm, all the different task management systems and this, that, and the other, they're there asking you to write your entire world down on one great big sheet and then cross it off as you go. Well, if you're anything like me, I'll put the 5 things down at the top of the list that I've already done so I can cross those off, get the dopamine, and then throw the list away. It's just the way it works. So actually, routine, slowly build up, slowly get the task, find a small reward. Anything. It could be, just a walk. It could be a new book. It could be an Audible. It could be something that's just you. And have that, use that as your guide. Use that as just a small reward to get that small thing done. Because if we can get those 3 done, then you can get the 4th done the next week and then the 5th done. And also the thing that we need to do more as a family. I absolutely know this. But as society, as well as communicate, is, we've got to communicate and be open. We've got to try and find a way to reduce and lower the fear of stigma, the fear of isolation, because we're different. Different is good. Everybody's different. Everybody's diverse. And, it's just that society tells us that we must fit to a certain typical manner. Well, everybody's different. So if we can communicate those steps to a family member, get accountable, actually have it that people are seeing what you're doing. That emotional control is key. And I think, to be able to plan those tasks around your life and not your life around the tasks is just an absolute mantra. If you were not doing 10,000 things last week and you're okay today, you don't have to do them this week. Just slowly build up, build up around that emotional control. Build up slowly so that you don't overwhelm yourself like I've done over the last week. Don't, try and find a way not to do that. And accountability is the only way for me that I can get things done. I now say to people, you must make me accountable. You must make sure I've done this by this time. You must make sure that I've completed what you've asked me to do. One of the worst things that we can do for others who are like this is set open-ended tasks. Oh, just do it whenever you can. Oh, it'll be all right. It will never get done. If you say it needs to be done by this and it needs to be done by this because, and this is the impact and the outcome. If you can set that, actually, it gives us something to go for. A bit of pressure's good, a bit of understanding of why. But if it's not, then it won't be. So we've got to do that and also make it interesting. Make it something that we want to be able to do. And again, that routine, as I said, trying to do that. Something that I've been doing a lot of research calls over the last week or so. Some have been harrowing, if I'm honest, where we've all ended up in tears. And, just a understanding. One chap said to me, but I thought I was the only one. Somebody else, talked about the desperation of standing next to the railway tracks because that was the only way. Others are trying to combat, but they stand in the corner. And someone said to me, if you leave a piece of yourself behind, before you walk through the office doors, the ripple effect it has on your mental health and relationships can be catastrophic. We have to enable and allow everybody, whether you're a child, adult, whoever you are, to be able to walk into anywhere and be authentic, because that's who we are. If we have to mask, if we have to be different, if we're being told that we have to be different, if we're scared because we're scared of what people's impression is going to be, then that's their problem. It's not your problem. The next few slides, what I wanted to do is start to think about the fact that, you know, there is no cure. And I don't want a cure. I am who I am, and I love who I am at times. Sometimes I have great big arguments with myself, but that's the way it goes. I think what I wanted to do is just have a look at some of the strategies, some of the thoughts that I've been collating that through working with Simon and Thrive and their team, just trying to understand the wheres, the hows and the wherefores as far as what we need. So I think work is a really interesting one, and there's a lot to be said about flexible working hours, working from home. Everybody's moaning about it. Everybody's causing, you know, this about it. Oh, it's this. You want to be splashy. You want to be the other. Well, do you know what? Just not putting somebody into the tube, let's say, or a really busy street, or getting them in their car where they're going to be hitting all that traffic. Just push everything by an hour. If you really want people in the office, push it by an hour. Just make sure that actually you're enabling somebody to arrive at the office with a ready to go attitude as far as being emotionally ready to go forward. And I think that's a really important pushback on all of the whole idea about hours and work from home and everything else. But I love working from home. It's, you know, I get so much more done. But I was also being an owner of a business, and I also understand that there's a lot of good stuff that happens within the office environment when you put people together, when you put brains together, when you put creativity together. When you do that, then the ideas do fly, and the working structure. And there are a lot of people that thrive on that need for people. So, you know, I understand both sides, but it is about just making small accommodations. It doesn't have to be some broad brush. It just needs to be small and thoughtful, that if you are in a big city and people are coming in, think about their route to work and think about what you can do there. Task structuring. Reduce the ambiguity in requests. How many times do you sit there and someone goes, oh yeah, well, I need that doing, and I need that doing, and I need this. And well, if you just have that next week. But okay, if you're going to do that, that's fine. Can you lay those out in an email? Can you make sure that I've understood them? Can you tell me what you need to do from, or what I need to do to make sure that's a success in your eyes, etc., etc. You know, it can't just be yes, yes, yes. It's got to be pushback. It's got to be to that manager, that person, that whoever it is. Make them clear. If you want the best out of me, you've got to tell me, because actually the problem often comes from managers just trying to find things for people to do and just throwing a load of stuff out, but then actually having a go at people as they come back. Frequent check-ins. Just check in, you know, but be clear why. Why do you want that meeting? What is that meeting about? I've spoken to 3 or 4 people over the last few weeks where they've had emails from HR. Yeah, we just want to have a chat. One HR was, we just want to have an off-the-record conversation. What, you know, all of these things, which actually all that does is heighten the sense of fear, of anxiety, of, well, what do they want to speak to me about? And that's when our brains go 1,000 miles an hour and create all sorts of different things when it's just someone wanted to see how you are. But by the time you get to that meeting, you're bristly and you're standing up and saying, what do you need from me? So those frequent check-ins are good, but really make sure that if you understand that somebody is within your workplace neurodivergent, or, you know, you tell somebody, then actually just think about how you set that person up and make sure you set them up for success and not failure. Take away the green eye. It's the most hated thing for me ever when I was in that corporate environment. with Slack or Zoom or this I am or that I am or whatever, the green light saying you're at your desk and you're working, you're doing it, and and people are looking at it. Well, why they're on red now? Why are they on red? Take it away and say that you're not going to be enforced by a green or red button as to what your work rates are, because it may be that you're thinking, maybe you're stretching, maybe you're taking some time out to be more productive. People cannot, but they do use those things as a way to, again, think they understand what your productivity looks like. And again, prioritization. I've talked a lot about that, but make sure that prioritizing is there. And tech solutions, right? Let's buy every tech thing. Let's give you everything. Let's do this. Let's do that. No, stop. Just think about and consult. Don't let IT decide what is accessibility tools. Don't let IT decide what this can be and that can be. Actually work in conjunction and make sure the tools that you need are available in order for you to be more productive. You've got to, it's about trying to stand up, and I know that is so difficult. Oh, we went too far. Visual aids, quiet spaces. Just if somebody needs to get up and get out of a meeting, let them get up and get out of a meeting, because all of this is about them actually processing that executive function, processing what's going on, making sure they've understood what's going on, and taking time to be able to understand what they need to do. If you put somebody on a spot, if you now, tell me what you think, then they're not going to have time. They're going to butt through that. They're going to try and come up with something. They might say something that is impulsive, and actually that is where they then feel isolated from what's going on. Accessible communication, think about the channels, as I said, the green lights, this, that. Try and make it that actually, what is the best way to communicate with you? What is the best way that you want, and how do you want that laid out? Emotional support, that should just be there. And employee training, it's a must. We've got to educate until they're so educated that actually we don't need to educate anymore. But until companies actually take it on and don't just wear the, oh yes, I've got a badge that took me 15 minutes to go and get, and now look at me, aren't I wonderful? And I can put that on my social media channels. No, that's no, just don't do that, because that's just ridiculous, quite honestly. Real proper employee training should be that employee now could train others, that employee now takes that forward, not just in their work life, but in their home life. How many times do I sit there and talk to people and say, oh, well, my friend, my cousin, my son, my daughter, my this, it can all be taken forward into that home life to actually be better for everybody. I hear this. I was speaking to a young lady who came onto one of my research calls, and she was really clear that she knew that people talked about her. She knew they made fun of her, and actually for her, she could deal with that. The thing that she couldn't deal with before, until she got into a particular class at uni, was that her the tutor got her, understood, and didn't make a big thing of it, but very slowly just supported her in small ways. She didn't need some EHCP, she didn't need some of this, she didn't need to tell everybody what's going on. But that teacher recognized what was going on, and just a bit more time, a bit more direction, a bit more detail, and actually came back. Her notes, her feedback was just more, so that actually when she took that on, she could understand it much better and go forward and be a lot more productive and a lot more safe in what she was doing, because it was about her. She didn't care about anybody else. She cared about her, and she cared about the influence of people such as tutors, teachers, etc. Again, school, it's much the same. There's no point. I won't go into as much deepness, but just clear and fixed deadlines with accountability. But we need to do that for our kids as well. We need to look at what they're bringing home, how they're doing, what they're doing with their homework, and actually set those. And for me, that's so hard. And I am communicating things that I'm learning as much as what I'm trying to do, as opposed to what I do and now I'm telling everybody else. These are hard things, because after a long day, actually you've got to start again, and then you've got to be that person who can dedicate that time and do that. It's another task that we've got to try and do. Visual timetables, again, just explaining what's going on. so that certainly a younger child can start to say, well, this is where I'm going, okay, and this is where I'm not, and this is where I'm finding things hard, and actually break that day up so that they can see and start to communicate feelings and thoughts about how they are getting into that environment. Again, structured environment, certainly for many in the neurodivergent community, sudden changes are a no-no. It's just painful. And, you know, if the environment that person has got used to suddenly changes, it can be utterly catastrophic to their learning over the next 2, 3, 4 months, not days, months, trying to re-figure out what this new environment looks like. Again, regular check-ins by teachers. But still teachers stand there and it's stop fidgeting, stop. We've got to get more understanding that if a child needs to get up and needs to go and do something and needs to do this and needs to do that, then actually, if that child, you know, is being productive at the same time, if that child is behaving at the same time, but just needs to move, then there's strategies that need to be found so that they can learn and not just learn about not fidgeting. Note taking, quiet spaces again, clear instructions, it's all the same. But it is from as young as they are right up to the time when we're as old as we are, it's the same. If you can do this, what we're doing as a community is building that individual's executive function. We're helping, we are bridging the gap between executive function and dysfunction by just these simple ways that actually make it then, when it comes to actually having to do a task, having to do something, they're in a place and are ready to be able to do that and feel supported to do that. Again, all of this is communication. All of this is, but that's hard. And putting yourself out there is hard. Play is something that my wife is an athlete. My kids are out there, you know, they're all very sporty. I think talking to Lou, though, it is her happy place. It's where she gets her sensory feedback and her regulation, where she gets away from me, quite honestly, and you know where she feels safe, and you know she can come back and you know whatever is being thrown at. But you know, a lot of us get into that, whether it be groups that we're part of, whether it be groups that our kids are part of, whether it's friends, neighbours, whoever, you know. It's still an area which for so many children who are neurodivergent, who have, you know, ADHD or others are autistic, they find that they are isolated from, and they find that they're not able to take part in. Certainly, one of my kids, there's no way anybody's going to touch him, go near him, and so rugby was out. But you know, he loves then to do OCR, which is the sport that he and my wife do. We've got to think about that structured play as well, and it's really difficult, certainly because a lot of sports teams, certainly on the children's side, are very much volunteer-led, or sports across the board are volunteer-led. But it's trying to find ways to get some of the structured play. So, you know, really define what's going on, define the rules. You know, certainly George looks at rules that they are sacrosanct, and you can't go around those rules. You have to do those rules, and if you try and bend those rules, it's a meltdown. It's an explode. So if there are rules, then think about that and think about how they're communicated. Visual cues, you know, make sure that, again, where are the lines? Where does that have to be? It can't just be thrown down. But at the same time, you know, maybe spend time in the park with the jumpers for goalposts and say that it can also just be fun, just to kick around doing that. Again, time sessions, and look for the children that maybe are starting to suffer, the ones that are stimming or the ones that are spinning, the ones that are dancing, the ones that are doing this, that, and the other, and maybe they've lost focus. So actually shouting at them, which I've seen on too many sidelines, trying to bring that kid back into what's going on. Actually, it might be just time that they go and do something else on their own for a while. It might be just time they just pull away for a little while, but not have that negative push. There was a report that came out that said that by the time an ADHD child is 12, they've already had 200,000 more negative comments pushed their way than their neurotypical peers. 200,000 times told you're worse. You know, that is really hard to keep coming back from time after time after time. And certainly in a sporting environment where it is so competitive, you know, we're going to lose them. And this is where so many neurodivergent kids end up: PlayStations, dark rooms, and that is it, because they control the space, they control what's going on, they control the on and off, as opposed to those more public spaces where they have no control, where we have to try and give them some smaller groups feedback. My gosh, just a bit of it. You're doing okay. You're fine. You're all right. You know, bridging that scaffold learning of actually, you know, not just starting at the start of the session and giving, you know, a 15-minute speech on what we're going to do. Break it down and then reinforce each time. Routine. You know, understand what's going on. Adaptive scoring, yes. You know, but again, it's more explaining than it is, you know, positive reinforcement. I'm just checking my time. We're going to have some. We're nearly there. So it is real, and just, you know, from the simplest way forward, just be kind, just be helpful, be understanding, but be clear. And so we will be accountable, we'll be open, we'll be authentic, and we can then be present. Being present in your own life, you know, amazing. So my last society, social equality impacts all, and all of us can make an impact. It's about clearing the obstacles, building more inclusive environments, and enabling access to resources and opportunities so everyone can thrive. I know Simon will like that bit. There you go.
Mate, I don't even know where to start. I've just dropped a little comment in there as well, and it's funny. I sometimes appear in the middle because we normally these sessions are 40 minutes long, and we normally finish after about 35 minutes with some question times. But I knew that you were gonna be just the amount of information in there, and I thought, do you know what? We're gonna totally allow a little bit of extra time this. I mean, fantastic that everybody on the call has on the webinar has stuck with us as well. You know, normally there's people, I've got a dash, I've got to go, but it was I think just compelling to hear not only all of the you know, all of the, I guess, the things that do trip us up in this wonderful thought process that goes on, but also so much that can be done to support, to help both ourselves and other individuals as well, which is just fantastic. Again, thank you so much, everybody who's joined us. Do we have any questions? Is there any questions that we'd like to ask Rich? We are eating into the rest of your lunch break, so I do apologise. I didn't see any coming up earlier. I just think everyone was just sort of fascinated by some of the content you were talking about there, Rich. And I personally have been guilty of the ADHD tax as well. I missed 2 gigs. I was suddenly sitting there one evening, and it was like, I'm meant to be in Wolverhampton. And you know, that was 70 quid down the drain. The amount of parking tickets I've had. Do you remember when we met at Oxford Services? Having so much fun. I've got a parking ticket. Yeah, that's brilliant. We've got a fantastic question there from Samantha. Do you have any specific advice on how to get stuff done? Just JFDI. What would you say to that, Rich?
I think some of it it's not biting off too much, and I think it's regulating what you need to get done. I think it is organization and routine. You know, as I said, I am not coming at this from being great at doing it, you know, but the things I've found is that actually we can find areas within our day when we are highly productive. For me, it's really early in the morning, and at that point somehow my brain clicks in and it works for the first, you know, 7 till 8 or 6 till 8. It really works, and I start to get things done. The best thing is to get everything on a spreadsheet if you can. Get your bank details, get all your banking statements, get them all onto a spreadsheet and go through that. And actually it becomes quite fun because you're starting to start to save money as you're doing it. And that then leads on to actually a more stable life management trajectory, and then start to eke in smaller things as you go. But you don't need to get it done today. just get it done as a path through the next few months.
That's brilliant advice. What I started to do as well, and with the help of my wife Kelly, was every Sunday evening she would right, what's in your head? You know, all the stuff you've got to do for the rest of the week. Just tell me it all now. I'll write it all down. And then she would go, right, what do you need to do tomorrow? What can someone else do for you? What, and you know, I then learned to say, well, that's really important because that's been important for like 4 months. And then we're like, well, is it really important if you've not managed to do it for 4 months? So she talks me through all of my bits that I need to do, and then it really compartmentalizes it. And then, like you said, I take 3 of them and I work on them, and I'm brilliant. I'm sort of 6 till 8 or 5 till 7 a.m. is brilliant for me. And again, 9 till 11, because nobody emails you because they're all in bed. And so I'm there. I can absolutely work on that. A great question from Benjamin. How do you stay motivated when when doing the tasks that aren't interesting or stimulating?
Don't. It is that, but that's it. And what where you are, Benjamin, is at the crux of our problem. You know, procrastination, not finding that motivation, not finding it interesting or stimulating. Again, it's starting to break it down. One of the things that certainly others in this world talk about is body doubling. Is just as Simon said, get somebody else next to you. If they are within, you know, the family sphere, or you know, a housemate, or somebody else, somebody finds somebody that task affects as well, that the outcome impacts them as well, and say, look, I need to get this done. How about let's do it together? Sit next to me, keep me real. There's some great sites around focus, some great sites where you can sit just with other people on the screen. It's just about that accountability. Focus mate, as Samantha said, you know, these are the ways that we do it. You know, I don't think there is a sudden thing to be able to. I think it is very much about just keeping yourself accountable to the end. And if you can get somebody else to hold you to that, I think that really does mean the difference.
Brilliant. Thanks, Rich. Oh, fantastic questions, and we are going to have to end it there. It's a special extended version of the Thrive webinar, monthly webinars. We would really love you to join us on the next webinar that we have, which is, now the screen's gone, I can't remember. It's the last Wednesday in November. It's a fantastic webinar around Tourette syndrome, and delivered by an incredible advocate in that space. So please join us again in November. And I popped Rich's LinkedIn link at the beginning of the chat as well. If you want to click on the three dots, you can save the chat. And Rich loves new connections. That's the other good thing about an ADHD brain. A stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet. So the more people we can get talking about this, and the strengths that lie behind it. So, Rich, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone.